Welcome back to another One Beer Chat. I'm on a work trip right now. I'm, as you can see, in a hotel room, and I could not pass up the Budweisers that just say freedom on the side of them in red, white, and blue here. So I figured what a perfect opportunity to do another One Beer Chat. So cheers to you guys. Let's start talking about ghillie suits. So I've been wanting to talk about ghillie suits because last year was the first year that I hunted using a ghillie suit. And the whole reason I got one last year was I had access to a couple new properties and I wanted to be 100% mobile. So I'd speed scouted these properties in the spring and then one more time in the summer where I then put some trail cams out, both regular cams and cell cams. And I had an idea in my head as to where I wanted to set up, but I didn't want to kind of pigeonhole myself having never hunted this property and having, dedicated stands or pop-up blinds that I would be, just wanting to go hunt those. I wanted to be 100% mobile so I could make adjustments on the fly, make adjustments hunt to hunt, do whatever I needed to do to learn this property and hunt it, as effectively as possible in its first year. So a saddle was one aspect of that, but a ghillie suit was another aspect. And honestly, ghillie suit changed the game for me. If I could pick a piece of gear that I used last year that was my favorite or kind of the biggest game changer or what I learned the most from, it would be the ghillie suit. So the one I bought, you guys can see in this picture, I look ridiculous wearing it. My kid thinks I look ridiculous. He loves it when I put this thing on. He thinks it's hilarious. My wife thinks I look hilarious. All my friends do as well. But this thing works, and this is a cheap ghillie suit that I got from Amazon. I think it was like 50 or 60 bucks, and it's one that's more of like the strings as opposed to kind of like leafy material. And it worked really well. And I didn't just dive into some hunting spots with it because I honestly, I needed to kind of prove to myself that this thing was going to work. So one of the first hunts that I did wearing this suit, which was honestly one of the most eye-opening as well, was one on a field edge where I knew I might have a chance at a buck, but in reality, those chances were probably pretty slim. I did know, though, that it was a field edge that would probably every single night have does and fawns in it. And it was one that also had some spots with like limited cover, more, tall grass, smaller shrubs, not really like big things that would conceal me really well. And I purposefully, when I went and hunted this, I picked kind of a spot where I felt a little naked. Like if I was just sitting there on the ground with, I took like a little pop-up blind folding chair with me that was pretty low to the ground. If I was just sitting there in regular camo, I can guarantee you deer would pick me. That's kind of how I wanted to test this suit. So I sat next to a bush that was probably, like 4 feet high. So me sitting, I was pretty much right to the top of it. And I kind of tucked in to it on my right side a little bit. So my right side was covered. That's where I expected deer to enter the field. But kind of in the front, I would have to look like a bush. And then really off to my left side, I felt very naked. And does and fawns started pouring out. And I think by the end of the night, most of them came from my right side. Some did come from my left. But at one point in the night, I had 10 does and fawns within 40 yards of me. Some as close as 15. The farthest one's 40. And I had them 180 degrees kind of in all directions. And not a single one busted. Deer literally looked through me. There were a few times where I was like, oh, she's going to peg me. She's going to start, ducking and weaving and kind of trying to figure out what I am. Nope. Deer looked right at me and they looked through me. And even motion too. I was trying to simulate, like if this was a buck or if this was a doe that I was going to try to shoot, okay, can I get on this doe? I'm watching the field of deer, basically trying to get my crossbow up for a shot. Could I pull it off, in the wide open kind of like this? And I could on several deer. Now, when a bunch got out there, I don't know. But when there were a few and I had multiple eyes on me, or even if a doe did pick up on movement and kind of looked my direction, as long as I froze, they did not see me as a human. So that was the, validation that this ghillie suit is definitely a viable option. And I think what I learned with it, it makes you, or it gives you the ability to hunt areas you might not hunt before. You might see spots where you're like, man, that's such a good spot. If I could just find a place to set up there. Maybe trees are little and scraggly or twisted up, like you really can't get a stand in. Swampy areas, close to bedding, something like that, where you literally are the cover. If you can just tuck in kind of by something, that ghillie suit breaks up your outline really well. So it gave me, and I think it can give you, the ability to hunt areas that you might not hunt. It gives you that ability to be 100% mobile. You don't have to wear it. You can pack it in, and if you kind of need to call an audible and need to hunt on the ground instead of a tree, or you want to go to a different area where you don't have a setup, ghillie suit's great to just throw on. I mean, it packs up really, really easy into a small. It comes with a pack, but I would just roll it up, stick it in my backpack, and I could go. I also noticed in a tree, if you were having to hunt a tree that was naked, it gave you some texture to not literally just look like a human sitting in a tree stand in a telephone pole, or in my instance, in a saddle, just in the wide open. I had another experience with does and fawns. Sorry, let me take a sip here. Another experience with does and fawns where I was in one of these trees. It was intended to be more of an observation sit in my best spot. It was the very first time I went to that spot. And the tree that I liked literally was a telephone pole. I didn't want to get too close to bedding, and I kind of wanted a spot that I could see and hopefully watch how deer filtered out of this bedding area and transitioned to ag fields. Well, very early in the hunt, I had a group of 5 does and fawns, 2 mature does, 3 fawns, come right at me. And I was not super high in this tree, and again, I had 0 cover. So saddle helped, being able to really tuck up against the tree, but I just hugged it as tight as I could, and I kind of looked like a big mossy ball up there. And at first, they did not notice me at all. When they got downwind of me, the first thing they were doing, looking up in trees. Those mature does started scanning trees, and they saw me as a blob up there, but they never blew. They never busted like I've been busted before by a mature doe, where they blow and they stomp and they circle your tree and they just keep doing it and they ruin your entire night. They definitely caught my wind. They definitely looked at me, but they didn't blow, and they just moved on their merry way out of that area. I actually had a great hunt that night. Almost got a crack at my target buck on that very first sit, but I don't think that would have even been possible, or the info that I gathered from that hunt would have even been possible had those does blown up that whole area for me. So on the ground, it's great. In a tree, it can be great too. And one of my best hunts of my life happened using that ghillie suit, getting into that bedding area, getting a crack at my target buck that, long story short, I botched the shot. But had I not been wearing that, I laid in swamp grass for almost 6.5 hours, from noon till 6:30, till this buck finally got up, and I knew where he bedded, ish, not the exact bed, but the area. And so I knew I was going to probably be within 75 yards of his bed. I was just too scared to try to climb a tree and have him see me and blow out of there. So I stayed on the ground, literally crawled through the swamp grass till I got to an area where I thought he could transition through. Man, it worked awesome there too, you guys. So there's a lot of advantages to wearing a ghillie suit. It, again, makes you more mobile, good on the ground or in a tree. It just does a better job of breaking up your human silhouette. One thing I think it does a really good job of, which is to me the differentiator, is breaking up like your head and shoulders. I think just having all that texture kind of poofy, and then wearing like the hat too, so you don't have this very human silhouette of head and shoulders sitting there. It's kind of more just this one continuous blob, brushy looking, thing. I really think that helps. But aside from that, I think the biggest advantage to a ghillie suit, especially hunting in pressured areas, is that no one else is doing it. So everybody's hunting from, tree stands or saddles now, but hunting from a tree, hunting from a pop-up blind, hunting from a box blind or elevated box blind. Deer are used to seeing that. Deer are used to associating that with hunters, especially if they catch human scent or see movement or whatever. Like, they understand those things. I think especially mature does or mature bucks, it is very easy for them, if they pick you off there, or if they smell you in those circumstances, to peg you as a hunter. But with the ghillie suit, they're really not used to seeing hunters dressed up like that. So like I was talking about, that movement that I got away with, if had I not been wearing that, or had that movement been caught, something moving around in a box blind or up in a tree, I think that's game over. But I was able to get away with movement even in the wide open and not be associated with a hunter, because I probably just looked like a bush where maybe a squirrel jumped in it or a bird flew through or whatever. Like, they're used to seeing brush and leaves and things like that moving. As long as you're not crazy about it, I was getting away with that. I was getting away with some deer that had got downwind on me, not just that tree example, but even on the ground too. If deer started to get to my scent stream, and they start looking around for that hunter, not being pegged as the hunter sitting on the ground or the hunter in the box blind or the pop-up or tree stand or whatever, I didn't have deer blowing and, clearing fields or does circling constantly. Like, I just didn't have any of that. And it's because they're not used to, in my opinion, they're not used to seeing people hunting with a ghillie suit. They're not used to associating this bush as a hunter. I think that's a huge advantage. That's a huge differentiator. Like, if you need that one little kind of X factor, that one last card in your deck to seal the deal on the deer that you're after, especially in areas that have a lot of pressure, I think this can really help you guys. And honestly, it was so much fun being on the ground with deer close and not having them see you. I mean, honestly, it was the most fun hunting style that I have done in quite a while. And at least right now, granted, again, only 1 year in to doing it, but it might be my favorite because I feel like a predator. I don't feel the pressure to like get a setup done really quick and quiet. Like, I am just quiet. I can move on the ground quiet. Sometimes I struggle climbing trees quiet. Sometimes I struggle picking out the right tree or rushing, trying to get things set up. Like, I just don't have that. A ghillie suit, I can literally sit down and be ready to hunt anytime. Assuming it's on me, or if I find a spot where I'm like, this is where I got to be and I got to be on the ground, I can put it on quick and I'm hunting, and I'm hunting very quiet and I'm hunting very stealthy. It really can be a differentiator for you guys. And kind of the last story that I'll share is the closest I've ever been to a deer in the wild was with that ghillie suit. I had a buck walk up to me. I'm not even kidding you guys. Now, granted, it was like right at first light, so it was legal shooting light, but it was hazy. Like, there was definitely hunter advantage just with the lighting and stuff. But I had a buck come within 5 feet of me, and I probably would have shot him. It was the day before gun season, and I hadn't filled a buck tag yet, and he was a pretty good 2.5-year-old. But he popped out of an area behind some other cover, and when I first saw him, he was already inside of 15 yards, and he was walking right at me. And my crossbow was on my lap. It was facing the other way, so I just completely froze. I was hoping maybe he would walk out just a little bit in front of me, and as he walked past me, I might be able to get a shot. He literally walked right at me from the right, and he didn't know I was there until he hit the area of like the tall grass and stuff that I was sitting in, where I had matted the grass down and basically like disturbed the area setting up. He then kind of looked up at me, and I'm sure he saw something, my crossbow, or he picked up scent or whatever, but I could have literally taken my crossbow and smacked him on the top of the head with it. And at that point, he had kind of freaked out and took a couple bounds and then was back kind of staring at me and stuff. But he got to within 5 feet. It was super cool. So I'm telling you guys this because if you're looking for a differentiator, if you're looking for a super fun way to hunt, if you're looking for an inexpensive item to add to your arsenal, I highly recommend a ghillie suit. The one that I got a link down below in the description. Again, it's not fancy, it's cheap. It might need to be replaced after a couple years. It was like 50 or 60 bucks, but it worked fantastic. The only downside is if you're gonna wear it into the woods, just be cognizant that like you are gonna get snagged on stuff. Like if you gotta walk through brush, even if it was just your pants, like leave your pants off until you get to your spot and then just put them over your regular camo pants. Or if you're gonna be walking through a lot of stuff, I would pack it in and put it on when you get closer to the area that you're gonna hunt, just so you're not getting snagged on all kinds of stuff. But outside of that, it is a dynamite way to hunt this deer season. Bow, gun, crossbow, whatever weapon you use, whatever situation, I think it can be the differentiator and something that you guys will just truly enjoy the experience of hunting with a ghillie suit. So that's the One Beer Chat, you guys. Thank you for joining me on this, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, do me a favor, hit that like button down below for me. Also hit that subscribe button. We'll be having more videos coming up, more One Beer Chats as the season approaches here for myself and probably many others this weekend. You guys, good luck, be safe, and I wish you nothing but success in the 2022 deer season. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, be a sportsman, make a sportsman.